The annual Parker family reunion was in full swing at my uncle's estate, the kind of gathering where success was measured in square footage and stock portfolios. I stood in a corner watching my cousin Marcus hold court near the imported marble fireplace, champagne in hand, regaling everyone with tales of his latest business triumph. "Another record quarter," he announced, straightening his Rolex, probably bought on credit. "Parker Technologies is expanding again. We just leased the entire top floor of the Diamond Tower downtown." I hid my smile behind my wine glass. The Diamond Tower, my latest real estate acquisition, purchased through one of my many shell corporations. Marcus had no idea he'd been negotiating his incredible deal with one of my property managers. "Sarah." My Aunt Beverly's shrill voice cut through my thoughts. "Come join the conversation. Tell everyone about what do you call it? Your little shop." I turned, meeting her patronizing smile with practiced patience. At 32, I owned half the commercial real estate in the city through my investment firm, but to my family I was just Sarah with her cute little vintage clothing store downtown. "It's doing well, Aunt Beverly," I replied quietly. "Thanks for asking." Marcus laughed, the sound echoing off the high ceilings. "Still playing shopkeeper, cousin? If you ever want to see how real business works, I could give you a tour of my company. Show you what actual success looks like." The irony almost made me choke on my drink. Marcus's success consisted mainly of over-leveraged expansions and desperate attempts to impress investors. His company was 3 months behind on rent in my building. "That's so kind of you, Marcus," I said, maintaining my modest facade. My cousin Emma, fresh from her latest shopping spree with Daddy's credit card, joined the conversation. "Sarah, honey, when are you going to get serious about your future? You can't play with clothes forever." They only knew. My little shop was actually a front for my real estate empire, Monarch Investment Group. I'd started small, buying a rundown storefront with my savings 7 years ago. Now I owned billions in prime commercial property, all hidden behind layers of corporations and holding companies. "I'm comfortable where I am," I replied. Uncle Richard, Marcus's father and self-proclaimed family patriarch, scoffed. "Comfortable isn't enough in this family, Sarah. Look at Marcus, expanding his tech company, making real moves in the business world. That's the Parker way." I watched Marcus preen under his father's praise, remembering how different things had been just a few years ago. When I'd first opened my shop, Marcus had been the first to mock me. "Retail is dead," he declared at the Christmas party. "But I guess some people aren't meant for bigger things." Now his company's survival depended on the very property he didn't know I owned. "Speaking of expansion," Marcus announced, swirling his champagne, "we just signed a deal to take over the entire west wing of the Diamond Tower. 40,000 square feet of prime office space. The landlord practically begged us to take it." Several relatives murmured appreciatively. I bit back a laugh, knowing the truth. My property manager had actually raised the rent 20% during negotiations, and Marcus had agreed out of desperation to maintain appearances. "Must be expensive," I commented innocently. Marcus waved his hand dismissively. "That's what success looks like, Sarah. Not everyone can understand the complexities of high-level business dealings. Some of us are built for bigger things than running a small shop." Just then my phone buzzed. The caller ID showed Diamond Tower Management. "Excuse me," I said, stepping aside. "I need to take this." "Probably a customer asking about vintage sweaters," Emma stage whispered, generating snickers from the gathered relatives. I answered, putting the call on speaker deliberately. "Yes, Mr. Harrison?" My property manager's voice filled the air. "Ms. Parker, sorry to bother you, but we need your decision on the Diamond Tower situation. Parker Technologies is 3 months behind on rent, and their latest check bounced. Should we proceed with eviction notices?" Marcus's champagne glass slipped from his fingers, shattering on the imported tile floor. "Furthermore," Mr. Harrison continued, "their proposal to lease the West Wing has been rejected by the board. Given their payment history, we don't feel they're financially stable enough for expansion." The room had gone deadly quiet. Every eye was fixed on me as I calmly reached into my purse and pulled out a folder. The complete lease agreement for Parker Technologies, with my signature on the final page as owner of the Diamond Tower. "Actually," I said, my voice carrying in the silence, "I think it's time we discuss the terms of your lease in person, cousin." The silence in the room was absolute. Marcus stared at the lease agreement in my hands, his face cycling through shades of red and white. Aunt Beverly's perfectly Botoxed expression had frozen in shock, and Uncle Richard looked like he might need his heart medication. This has to be a joke, Marcus finally sputtered. You're just a shop owner. I smiled, placing the lease agreement on the marble coffee table. Actually, the vintage store is more of a hobby. Monarch Investment Group is my real business. Emma, who had been scrolling frantically on her phone, gasped. Monarch Investment? The company that owns half the commercial properties downtown. Among other things, I replied, taking a sip of wine. We've been quite busy lately. Just acquired the Marina District development, the Westview office complex, and... I paused for effect, the entire Diamond Tower. Uncle Richard's hand trembled as he reached for the lease agreement. But Monarch is a billion-dollar company. The newspapers say it's run by some mysterious real estate mogul who never appears in public. Sarah Parker, so, I said, extending my hand mockingly. Though I prefer to stay out of the spotlight. It's amazing what people reveal about themselves when they think you're just a small business owner. Marcus collapsed onto the Italian leather sofa, loosening his tie. The rent increase, the expansion rejection. That was all you? Business is business, cousin. Speaking of which, I pulled out my phone. Should I have Mr. Harrison proceed with the eviction notices? You can't do this, Marcus pleaded, his arrogance evaporating. We have contracts, agreements. All of which you've breached by failing to pay rent for 3 months. I scrolled through my emails. Not to mention the bounced checks, the unauthorized office modifications, and the interesting creative accounting in your submitted financial statements. Aunt Beverly stepped forward, her social climbing instincts kicking in. Sarah, darling, surely we can work something out. We're family after all. Family. I laughed softly. Let's talk about family. I opened another folder on my phone, projecting it onto the massive TV screen that dominated one wall. 2016. Marcus tells everyone my shop will fail within 6 months. 2017. Uncle Richard advises his golf club friends not to do business with me because I'm just playing at being an entrepreneur. 2018. Aunt Beverly suggests I should focus on finding a husband instead of wasting time with retail. The photos and recordings played across the screen, years of subtle insults, dismissive comments, and condescending advice, all meticulously documented. 2019, I continued. Emma here starts a rumor that my shop is a money laundering front because, and I quote, how else could someone so basic afford that location? I smiled at my cousin. The answer, Emma, is that I own the building. But why keep it secret? Marcus demanded. Why pretend to be small time? Because money doesn't just reveal who you are, it reveals who everyone else is. I walked over to the bar, pouring myself another glass of wine. Every lease application that crossed my desk, every business proposal, every investment opportunity. I saw how you all treated people you thought were beneath you. Uncle Richard's face darkened. Now see here, young lady. No, you see here, I cut him off. Parker Technologies' latest loan application? Rejected by 3 banks this month. Care to guess who owns controlling interest in those banks? Marcus went pale. The expansion plans, our investors. Will be very interested to learn about your company's real financial situation. I picked up the lease agreement. Unless what? Marcus asked desperately. Unless we renegotiate. Not just the lease but everything. I sat down in Uncle Richard's favorite armchair. The one he never let anyone else use. First, Parker Technologies will undergo a complete restructuring. New management, new board, new direction. You're taking over my company? Marcus whispered. Saving it, actually. Though your role will be significantly reduced. I smiled. Think of it as a learning opportunity. You wanted to show me how real business works, remember? Emma tried to sneak out of the room, but I wasn't finished. Oh, and Emma? That boutique you've been planning to open with Daddy's money? The lease you signed last week for that prime location on 5th Avenue? She froze. What about it? Monarch owns that building too. Unfortunately, the space has just been leased to another tenant. My vintage shop is expanding. The room erupted in chaos. Marcus buried his face in his hands, probably calculating how quickly his carefully constructed image of success would crumble. Emma burst into tears, her boutique dreams evaporating. Aunt Beverly looked like she'd swallowed her expensive pearls. My phone buzzed again. "Miss Parker, your helicopter is waiting. The Singapore investors are expecting you for dinner." "Thank you, Harrison." I stood up, smoothing my basic dress, a one-of-a-kind piece that cost more than Marcus's car. "I should go. Real business calls." "Wait." Marcus jumped up. "What about Parker Technologies? What about our lease? Check your email tomorrow. My lawyers will be in touch with the restructuring details." I headed for the door, then paused. "Oh, and Marcus? The rent's going up another 20%. That's what success looks like, cousin." Uncle Richard finally found his voice. "Sarah, please. Think about what you're doing to this family." "I have thought about it. For 7 years I've thought about every snide comment, every dismissive gesture, every time you made me feel small. I turned to face them one last time. Now you know how it feels." As I walked out to my waiting helicopter, I heard the chaos erupting behind me. My phone started buzzing with messages. "Marcus, please, we need to talk about the company." "Emma, Sarah, I'm so sorry about everything." "Aunt Beverly, darling, let's discuss this over lunch at the club." "Uncle Richard, this isn't the Parker way of doing business." I smiled, typing a single response to the family group chat. "Unfortunately, I'm too busy playing shopkeeper to respond. Feel free to stop by my little store if you need anything. I hear the rent in that area is quite reasonable. At least it is if you own the building." The next morning, my assistant handed me the daily reports. Parker Technologies' stock dropped 30% overnight. Rumors about their financial stability are spreading. As expected. "Your cousin Emma has applied for a job at your vintage store. She attached a very lengthy apology letter. File it with the others. And your Uncle Richard wants to know if you'll be attending the next family reunion." I looked up from my desk where I was finalizing the acquisition of another office tower, this one housing several of my relatives' struggling businesses. "Tell him I'll have to check my schedule. Running a little shop keeps me quite busy." "And the vintage store's expansion?" "Proceeding as planned." I smiled. "Though maybe we should add a section for designer accessories. I hear Emma has quite a collection she might need to sell soon." My phone buzzed one final time. Marcus, probably making another desperate plea to save his company. I turned off the phone and focused on my empire. After all, success isn't just about owning buildings. It's about building something that towers over those who once looked down on you. And I was just getting started. The next family reunion would be very interesting indeed. Especially since I'd just purchased Uncle Richard's estate at a foreclosure auction. Sometimes the best revenge isn't served cold. It's served with a lease agreement and an eviction notice.